Hey guys, it's Hunter here with something a little bit different today. I originally said I was going to do this on a gaming channel video, but then I realized that I really wanted to do this video. So, here we go. With the Ratchet Clank movie just over the horizon, and our review of it being as inevitable as Donald Trump saying something stupid before elections in November, we here at Headhunter Productions decided to gather as many Ratchet Clank facts, bugs, exploits, everything that we could find in the games. We're doing this because we not only want to show our love for the series, but want to prove to you that we are the only ones capable of truly reviewing the movie. So, without further ado, here are 80 facts about Ratchet Clank. We're going to be going into spoilers for all of the Ratchet & Clank games here, so if you don't want those, I'd recommend clicking off of the video now. Number 1. It's a well-known fact that James Arnold Taylor is the voice of Ratchet, but this wasn't always the case. In fact, for the first game, it was someone completely different, Michael Kelly. James Arnold Taylor didn't actually start voicing Ratchet until going commando. Why Michael Kelly stopped voicing him is still unknown. Number 2. If you happen to be up at 3 in the morning playing Ratchet & Clank going commando, there's a teleporter on top of the fountain on planet Bolden that brings you to the Insomniac Museum. It only works between 3 a.m. and 3:59 a.m. And if you want to be an absolute toll, you can just reset your system time. Number 3. An alternate method of getting to this location is glitching yourself off of the planet's grind rail onto the nearby ground. This method takes advantage of the fact that the teleporter on top of the fountain doesn't take you directly to the museum, it takes you to another teleporter on the planet, which then takes you to the museum. It also involves glitching through a lot of walls. A new museum came back at Ratchet & Clank 3 that can be accessed once again early in the morning from the Metropolis level, or glitching through the door. A simple method of doing this is to spam turrets. Or, no, I'm just saying, you could play the game as it's intended to be played. Number 4. I brought this up on our gaming channel for our original Ratchet & Clank playthrough, but the original game's strategy guide was actually missing information. Prices of certain things you had to buy were missing, location of a couple of vendors were missing, and they even left out a number of skill points. Which is probably why for the second game they got Brady Games to write the guide. Number 5. Insomniac seems to be trying, and has succeeded, actually, in phasing out the thruster pack. In the first game, it was a requirement to progress. By the second game, it was just more of an option. And said option carried over until Crack in Time, where they phased it out completely. The model was later recycled and turned into the jetpack that we see in Into the Nexus. Number 6, if you happen to find yourself at a Megacorp weapons facility, take down all of the missiles that they have on display. The 4th one will blast into space, but come back down later and save you a ton of time and effort, not to mention ammo, in killing a massive enemy. Number 7, we never actually see Ratchet's bare hands. This goes the same for every other Lombax character that we've run into, and to this day we have no idea what a Lombax hand actually looks like. Number 8, and surprisingly on topic, Angela is in fact a Lombax. So when going to write the future series, this created a number of problems. But it's stated through the radio in Crack in Time that she hooked up with Max Apogee before Tachyon could move in and escape the planet Jacindu. From there, it's unknown if she used the Dimensionator to escape to another dimension, but the story in the Ratchet & Clank collection implies that she stayed. Number 9, Captain Quark appears in every game in some form. It has been like this since the first game, and the only exception to this rule is Ratchet & Clank going mobile. Number 10, just like Captain Quark, there is always a version of the Rhino. Deadlock technically doesn't follow this rule, but it has its equivalent, which is the Harbinger, which might as well be the Rhino. Number 11. In the first game, Drek is seen in a number of cutscenes that the game says is somewhere aboard his flagship. This area actually exists, but is not accessible. In fact, it's not even on his flagship. Using a Visibob gun, turns out, they were shot on an entirely different ship. They were on the smaller ship that's sitting in front of his flagship. The wiki knows little to nothing about this ship, although there are breakables on it, as confirmed by wall hackers. Number 12. You can actually break going commando if you use the fast travel system properly. On the Thugs for Less prison level, once you get separated from Clank, you can go to the arena, but without Clank. Going to the Thugs for Less jamming moon results in the game actually becoming inoperable. The issue can, however, be easily fixed by just going back to the prison. Number 13. In Ratchet Deadlocked, Al is programmed to tell you, after he told you that he upgraded his bots to turn bolt cranks, that you should use the bots instead. Well, for a bit of this game, Al gets shot and is in the hospital. But if Ratchet never turned a bolt crank up to this point himself, he'll still come on and tell you to use the bots. So I guess he called us from the hospital to tell us this. Number 14. Speaking of Al, he later comes back in Deadlock. Only difference here is he's not wearing his Deadlock collar. Number 15. The plumber never appears more than once except for 2 occasions in the original and into the Nexus. Number 16. There is always a gun that turns enemies into some form of animal in every Ratchet & Clank game. There is no exceptions to this rule, including going mobile. Number 17. The decoy glove in the original game showed Ratchet without his shirt on, and in Going Commando showed him with his commando armor. Number 18. The developers of Ratchet & Clank were originally going to have a weapon called the Revolverator, which Ratchet would use to strike enemies with and then spin them over his head. This weapon was apparently so far in the development stages that it actually managed to sneak onto the front cover of the game. Despite sounding like the funnest thing in the world, it used too many resources and left Ratchet open to attack, so they scrapped it. But not before they recycled the model they had for it, to be held by a large construction worker who gives you a lump of raritanium. Number 19. The combat bots in Ratchet Deadlocked were at some point intended to have legs. Bits and pieces of concept art are still flowing around, including in-game screenshots where they show off these legs. Also unconfirmed is that they had legs on the Japanese cover of the game. Why the legs were removed was likely to save time on animation. But this didn't stop Insomniac from milking it a little bit, as Green mentions every now and then that he got his legs blown off. Number 20. Ratchet's feet are programmed to respond to different floor angles, so the devs decided that the sharpest angle he should be able to walk up is a 45-degree angle. This is half of a 90-degree angle. Not only is bending your foot this far impossible, but it would also snap the back tendons in your foot, which implies that Ratchet's feet must have some sort of interesting anatomy going on. Number 21. If you swim around the edge of the level Pokitaru in Ratchet & Clank 1, you can actually glitch yourself below the level. And if you keep swimming down, the screen will eventually go black and you will respawn as if you died. Number 22. The original Ratchet & Clank was originally intended to have a gold rhino. The asking price for this weapon is unknown, although it would have had to been exorbitantly high, given that the rhino is the most expensive weapon in the game. The gun can still be obtained through code breaking, only the weapon does 1 HP damage per missile, which is actually weaker than the previous version of the gun. Number 23. Using previous game save data in Ratchet & Clank 3 not only gets you a discount on all the vendors, but free versions of all the Megacorp weapons. The same can be said of Ratchet & Clank 2, where you can use this to obtain free Gadgetron weapons. Number 24. Due to a bug, it's actually impossible to get the Omni Wrench 1200 in Ratchet & Clank Going Commando on your second playthrough. Number 25, Mr. Fizzwidget and Captain Quark are both voiced by Jim Ward. This works to the developer's advantage, as Quark later kidnaps Mr. Fizzwidget and takes his place. And seeing as how they sound the same, no one would know the difference. Number 26. All of the pieces on the chessboard at the beginning of Up Your Arsenal are enemies from previous games. Number 27. All of the people in the movie theater seat at the end of Up Your Arsenal are all characters from previous games. This also includes Angela Cross, who can be seen wearing her thief outfit, likely to avoid spoilers for people who haven't played Going Commando. Number 28. In Ratchet Deadlock, the announcers make references to two food items, Lombax pate and Lombax brains with eggs and salsa. This can probably imply that Lombaxes were hunted for food at some point in the near past. Though, given their state right now, they're probably considered a delicacy. Number 29. Insomniac seems to love extending bridges in the most elegant ways possible. Throughout several points in the early trilogy, and a couple points in the later games, several bridges are extended in over-the-top ways that are overly complicated and unnecessary. The reason for this is unknown, but the popular reason is that Insomniac just really likes making complicated bridge extensions. Number 30. Along with your Morph Array, there are also 3 basic weapons in every single Ratchet & Clank game. They are your standard rapid-fire weapon, some form of point-and-shoot rocket launcher, and a bomb-lobbing weapon. Number 31. Despite her appearance, Helga is actually quite active and quite fast. This is indicated by the skill point in the VR Hypershot training course, where you have to beat her best time, which is 50 seconds. In order to beat this time, you really have to book it through this course. On a side note, Helga's full name is Helga von Streisenbergen, which is interesting. Number 32. The Jack 2 reference in Clank's apartment is blatantly obvious, but what a lot of people don't notice is that this later appeared in the game. In Algon City, the poster can be seen again. But a much harder to find Easter egg is the Jack 2 billboard that actually has Ratchet and Clank displayed on it. This is found in the arena section of Haven City. By the way, still waiting on that crossover game, you two. Number 33, the gadget that is used the absolute least in the entire franchise is the glider from Going Commando. The gadget is only used twice, and both of these times are required in order to complete the game. The fact that it's only used twice is probably a godsend, because it's bulky and not fun to control in the slightest. Some people will argue that the least used gadget is the CodeBot, but there's no interaction ever used with the CodeBot whatsoever, as the CodeBot is only used to open a door. On a side note, this technically means it can't be considered a gadget. Number 34, despite mankind's understanding of physics, Clank's helipack still works in the vacuum of space. Number 35. Remember when I said that Drek's cutscene area could actually be seen in-game? This actually goes for a lot of areas in the game, which is made blatant by a game that you two can play at home called Spot the Crates. Stacks of crates and whatnot can be spotted in the background of cutscenes, making it blatantly obvious at some point Ratchet would go to this area. 3 obvious ones are the area where you fight the Blargian Snagglebeast, the robot plant on Planet Quar 2 in the opening cutscene, and the shuttle bay at Drek's fleet. Insomniac didn't realize this mistake until the game was already finished. As a result, they went out of their way to make sure no crates showed up in the cutscenes of Going Commando. Despite this, most of the cutscenes still take place within the confines of the actual level. This trend continued until Ratchet Deadlocked. Number 36, the Commando in Ratchet & Clank 1 states that his entire battalion went AWOL and left him to fight the war on his own. A military battalion typically consists of 300 to 800 units, which means 300 to 800 units went AWOL all at once. Holy shit. Number 37. In Ratchet & Clank Going Commando, despite its massive size and massive amount of health, the giant mech boss can actually be killed with traditional weapons. This is extremely difficult to do not only because of dodging reasons, but because of ammo limitations. However, if you went on a grind session and went and bought the Rhino, this can actually be done. Number 38, Gorda City hates everybody. This level from the original game is infamous for not only being the hardest level in the game, but constantly spitting in your face. It starts out by taking away your helipack, Then, once you open up the first vendor, you get the most expensive weapon in the game that isn't the Rhino. You have to go through an extremely difficult course in this level to get the most amusing weapon in the game, which is the Morph Array. An obnoxious skill point tells you to destroy all of the street lamps in the level. A gold bolt that, unless you're extremely skilled at the game, has to have you kill yourself. The enemies are particularly difficult to dodge. There's a diabolically evil ice course involving lasers and hurricane force winds that will push you to your death. And the hardest to obtain gold bolt in the entire game, involving swing shot targets that pull you over to them with no platform underneath them. Number 39, once you get a gadget in every Ratchet & Clank game, you will always have to use it in order to progress in the game. Exceptions to this rule are all of the boots throughout all of the games, excluding the hover boots, and all of the helmets from Ratchet & Clank 1. Number 40. As of Ratchet Deadlocked, Ratchet is 18 years old. It's never stated in the actual games, but if you have save data for Deadlocked on the same memory card that you have Jack X save data on, you unlock him as a playable character, where we find out that his age is 18. The fact that this was his age is Deadlocked is further concreted by the fact that he's wearing his Deadlock armor. Going a bit further into it, the Gadgetron CEO in the first game said that Ratchet would have to wait 2 years until his employee discount started working. Since his employee discount was relevant in Up Your Arsenal, that implies that there's at least a 1-year gap between each game, which means that Ratchet was 15 in the first game. I was just trying to survive high school at that age. Meanwhile, he's out saving the entire galaxy. And we have it good. Number 41. Size matters, being the disaster that it already is, further makes itself a mess by contradicting itself. In the early game, Ratchet states that there are no technomites, and he's pretty adamant about this fact. Yet later in the game, Luna states that everyone uses technomite technology, ergo contradicting everything that Ratchet previously said. Number 42, the only reason that the early Ratchet & Clank games, as in 1 through Deadlock, had a T rating was because the E10 rating didn't exist yet. The first game to be rated E10 in the series was Ratchet & Clank Size Matters. And if you look at the games, there isn't even that many reasons as to why it needs to be rated T anyway nowadays. There's about a total of 3 swear words said in the entire franchise, and all 3 are bleeped out. Number 43. Despite the fact that it's faded into obscurity and no legal means of obtaining it exist, going mobile is ambiguously canon to the actual series. Nothing story relevant was revealed in this game, and it's said to take place between Up Your Arsenal and Deadlock. Number 44, pressing all 4 of the shoulder buttons on the main menu of Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal unlocks a Sly 2 demo. This feature did not carry over to the Ratchet & Clank collection several years later, however, it can only be obtained through the PS2 version. Number 45, when you boot up Going Commando, Ratchet can be seen playing video games. If you wait long enough, he starts playing more than just the first 2 games. He'll start playing games like the original Sly Cooper, Jak 2, and Jak and Daxter the Precursor Legacy. Number 46. The clock tower in Going Commando on Planet Bolden is actually linked into your system time. This clock is also linked into the time it takes for a nanotech boost to spawn on top of one of the fountains. The rumor mill states that it takes a full hour for a new one to spawn, but hell if we have the patience for that. Number 47. On the Blarg Station level of the original game, there are several computers that are breakable but placed throughout the level. Looking closely at the screen reveals a person's face. This person is none other than Dan Johnson, who was a former level designer for Insomniac Games. His face can also be spotted a second time on the mushrooms growing out of the trees in Metropolis. While we're on the topic, his face appears in every other Ratchet & Clank game somewhere, excluding Going Mobile and Before the Nexus. The reason behind this mysterious Easter egg is a bit of a mystery. You move in mysterious ways, Mr. Johnson, and may you rest in peace. Number 49. Also in the original game, right before Ratchet fights the Blargy and Stacklebeast, Quirks says, "I love it when a plan comes together." This is a famous line said by Hannibal from the A-Team. Number 50. In Ratchet Clank Going Commando, there are 2 cutscenes where Ratchet uses the Heavy Lancer. However, if Ratchet hasn't upgraded the Lancer to the Heavy Lancer at this point, it will still be the Heavy Lancer. The good news is, however, Insomniac seems to realize this mistake because they never did it again. Number 51. Also in Going Commando in Clank's apartment, Ratchet can use the dynamo on the pyramid on Clank's table in order to play a 2-player version of Space Invaders. This was the first instance of any form of multiplayer in any Ratchet & Clank game. Number 52. Back in the original game, Ratchet had to go aboard a decommissioned Blarg warship on the Blarg station level. One thing you probably didn't notice while you were going through this ship was that it was actually at a tilted angle, and Ratchet's feet were responding as if it were a hill. The reasoning behind this is unknown. It was either an oversight or a mistake on their part because it seems like a rather easy fix, considering the technology that went into the gravity moons in the next game. Number 53. On Planet Gaspar of the original game, you'll eventually come to a room filled with giant computers all displaying the same map. This map is actually the map for Planet Battalia, which was the planet where the infobot for this planet was received. Number 54. It's impossible to 100% any Ratchet & Clank game on the first playthrough. The closest you could get to 100%ing your first playthrough is in the original game. It'll allow you to get every weapon, skill point, and gold bolt, but not every gold weapon, as these must be obtained on planet Novalis during your second playthrough. Number 55. In Ratchet & Clank Going Commando, the Yeti enemy is spelled out as if it were an acronym. However, no acronym actually exists. However, one theory as to what it stands for is Your Everlasting Terror Inducer. More on that in a bit. Number 56. At the very end of Going Commando, Quark is the test subject for the crotchetizer. In Up Your Arsenal, he still has a crotchetizer. Nothing is confirmed here, but there may be some kind of off-screen addiction going on. Number 57. At the beginning of the original game, Ratchet's house can be seen with a Quark poster on the wall and various odds and ends throughout the building. Upon returning to this area at the end of the game, it's empty, implying that he probably got robbed, seeing as how he didn't close the door when he left. Number 58. In the original 2 games, it's never actually specified what Ratchet is. The only reference to what Ratchet actually is in the original game is a piece of concept art that says he is, in fact, a Lombax. The name of his race isn't actually said in-game until the 3rd installment, and even then it was pretty vague. Deadlock tried to push the title Lombax out a little bit more, up till Tools of Destruction, where they tried to make it as evident as possible. Number 59, Ratchet has never actually had a legitimate love interest. This is despite the fact that both Ratchet and Clank seem to rake in girls as much as they rake in bolts, which actually might help bring in more girls. Number 60. In Up Your Arsenal, by hitting square at the vidcomic selection screen, brings up a code entry window. By typing in Megan and pressing start takes you to the Insomniac Museum to play a 2-player minigame called Pirate vs. Ninja. Alternatively, typing in Ying Zhu teleports the player once again to the Insomniac Museum to play a version of Bomberman that can be played with 4 people. And before you ask, it sent you back to the Starship Phoenix afterward. Number 61, there actually is a Konami code. In fact, Al enters it in the game at one point. In any vid comic, go up, up, down, down, left, right, circle, square, square. Quark will actually start wearing a tutu. Keep in mind that this isn't an exact duplicate of the Konami code because you only press the circle button once. Number 62. Well, on the topic of vidcomics, after you get all 5, go to the vidcomic selection screen and press up while you have the cursor over the first vidcomic. The game will select a hidden vid comic that you can then play. This vid comic can alternatively be played at the Insomniac Museum alongside the cut version of the original Quirk vid comic. Number 63. The Snow Beast Award is an in-studio joke that the devs came up with. Originally started back during Going Commando, it was awarded to the person who created the worst thing in the game, which was, you guessed it, the Yetis. The award was later brought back for Up Your Arsenal, where it was awarded to the giant rocket turrets, which are impossible to dodge with your hover ship, Deadlocked, where it was more than likely awarded to the Eviscerator, and Tools of Destruction, where it probably went towards Tachyon. Those last two are unconfirmed, however, because they stopped keeping track of it. Number 64. Going Commando makes reference to a product called the Lawn Ninja. In Up Your Arsenal, these are an actual enemy that you can kill. Number 65. Although moderately difficult to pull off, it is actually entirely possible in the original game to skip getting the Hologuys altogether. This can be achieved by using the Visibomb gun's ability to fly anywhere in the level and the decoy glove's area of effect damage. The basic strategy behind it is that when the sentry bot dies, the force field also dies. For the robot stuck entirely behind the force field, an area of effect damage weapon has to come into play. Thanks to an oversight, the area of effect damage for the decoy glove goes through these force fields. Not only does this allow the player to skip the entirety of the Gadgetron site, but it also makes it so that Ratchet doesn't get his employee discount. Whether or not it still works in the third game after doing this is unknown. Number 66. Although several weapons throughout the series indicate that the mechanic was originally meant to be there, no reloading mechanic has ever existed in any Ratchet & Clank game. Number 67. A weapon mechanic that seems to come back a lot in Ratchet & Clank games is the robot that flies over your shoulder. This includes, but isn't limited to, the drone device in the original game, the Synthenoids in Going Commando, the Agents of Doom in Up Your Arsenal, and Mr. Zircon. If you want to get technical, technically the combat bots from Deadlocked can actually fall under this category. Number 68. On top of platforming, the devs seem to want to phase out swimming as well. The swimming mechanics became less and less relevant to the point where it peaked in Deadlocked, where there was no swimming whatsoever. Tools of Destruction kind of brought the swimming back, only to shoot it down again with Crack in Time, where there was barely any swimming at all. If any, for that matter. Number 69. One thing that was very prominent as the games went on was that Insomniac seemed to be trying to create them to be darker and edgier than the last. This trend seemed to peak at Ratchet Deadlock, but then start dying down in Tools of Destruction. Number 70. Given the way that everyone interacts with one another, it's fairly safe to say that robots have equal rights as organics. Number 71. It's never actually explained where Ratchet is keeping all of his weapons. The devs pay homage to this fact during arena battles, where the announcer will ask where is he keeping all of his weapons. Number 72, Japan released a Ratchet & Clank manga called Ratchet & Clank Bang 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 Critical Danger of the Galaxy Legend. That is a title. Number 73, you probably won't notice it at first, but Quirk actually gets stupider as the games go on. He's relatively level-headed in the first game, yet we compare that to Crack in Time, where he's actually straight up stupid. Given that the storyline of Ratchet & Clank isn't actually finished yet, we can only assume that this trend will continue. Number 74. If it's any gadget that has stood the test of time, it is the Swing Shot. This gadget was first introduced in the original game and has stood up all the way up to into the Nexus. Up Your Arsenal did have something different called the Hyper Shot, but it was the same mechanics and everything. It was the Swing Shot. The only game that did not have the Swing Shot was before the Nexus. Number 75. In the original game on Quirks Gauntlet, there actually is a legitimate way to get rid of the Gatling turrets. Anything else thrown at these will have them come back a few seconds later. However, using the Morph Array on them will turn them into a chicken, and the turret does not respawn. Number 76. In Up Your Arsenal, Turbo Slider races were gonna be a thing, and in Kraken Time, Hoverboot racing was gonna be a thing. Both of these features were cut out of both of these games, however, 2 courses were made, one for each of them. Both of these can be accessed from their games' respective museums. Number 77. At the hoverboard race in Blackwater City, going into the race wearing your Hollow Guys actually breaks the race and lets you walk along the track. This can be taken a step further to get unlimited amounts of money by going along the track, standing underneath the platform that spawns a number of crates, and using the taunter. Number 78. While you were busy smashing up the promenade in Going Commando's Canal City level, you may have noticed the ones and zeros on the walls. Putting these numbers through a binary translator spells out Dan Johnson's name. Oh, you sneaky son of a gun. Number 79. In the original Ratchet Clank game during the commercial for Al's RoboShack, a wanted poster for Ratchet Clank can be seen in the background. This is most likely because the cutscene was recorded while they were still using the demo version of the level, which had these wanted posters plastered everywhere. And finally, number 80. Despite the fact that they appear everywhere in every level of every game, there is actually no canon reason as to why the crates are there or where they come from. The closest explanation that we have to a source is the Crate Factory in Ratchet & Clank All for One. That'll do it for our list of Ratchet & Clank facts, ladies and gentlemen. Feel free to post down in the comments any that we may have missed. Also, leave your opinion. Did you like the video? Did you hate the video? We could do more, we could do less, or we could never do it again. Let us know, because this was actually a really fun project, and while we're on the topic, be on the lookout for Hunter reviews Ratchet & Clank the movie, because it is inevitably going to happen. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to figure out how to actually get a PlayStation 4, because I have no legitimate means of obtaining it right now, and I really want to play the new game that's just come out.